All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day, I think 14, maybe 15 of Java coding. I think it is 15. Yeah, yeah, 15. Today, we're going to be figuring out how to add an animation or making animations in coding. And it's not actually built into processing, but there is a good way to do it. So before I hop into the code, let me show you guys what's in my file explorer. So I created inside of the folder, right, where I'm going to put my sketch. I have a data file, and the data file contains these open source images of a horse running, and you can find these images um, uh, at the link in the description below. I put a link in the description. It's just of a horse running, and so we're going to get this horse to run across the screen. So let's get back into our sketch. How are we going to do this? Well, how about this? Let's create an animation class first. An animation class will just be a list of images that we can loop through easily. So animation, right? In our animation class, what do we need? So let's figure it out. Okay, class animation. Let's just create the animation class first, right? I don't need that many spaces actually. Okay. What are we going to have inside of our animation class? Well, we're going to have a list of images, right? So we're going to create a p image list, right? If you add the square brackets, it becomes a list, and we're going to call that images. Now we're going to create an image count. We're going to count the number of images, and we're doing this because it'll be easier for us to loop through the images if we add a count variable. So image count, the number of images that we're going to have, and then also we're going to create a count, right? Or a count that we can loop through the images with. So let's create our constructor. If you remember what a constructor is, it's the first thing that runs when we create an object using this class. We're gonna give it a file name, right? Two keywords: file name and count, just to make things easier. So what are we going to have for these? Well, now if we go to our file explorer, we'll see that there's a consistency between all the images. It says horse dash run dash 0 0 or 0 1 or 0 2. So what our file name will just be everything before the counting variable, or everything before the number that changes, right? So our file name will be horse-run-0, because after the 0 comes a counting variable. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In total, we'll have 7 frames. Now, it says it ends with 6, but that's because we're including 0. So we have a count of 7, right? And the file name we'll know. But we'll make this animation class applicable to all classes. So let's go back to our code and let's start implementing that. Okay. So we want our image count to equal the count that is given to us, and we're also going to want the images, this dot images, to equal a new object, a new array list, right? With the number of images as the image count. This dot image count. That way, basically, we're creating an array that can store up to the number of images that are inside of our image array thingy. Okay. Now before we that might seem like it, right? We have the number of images, and we have an empty array of images to put our images inside, and we have the number of images stored inside this image count variable. But before we're going to use that, we're going to have to load in all of the images. So we're going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than image count, right? Or less than this dot image count I plus plus. We're going to loop through basically all of the image. We're going to say images of I, because right now it's null. We can fill it using a loaded image and if you remember how do you load an image? How do you create a p image object? Instead of saying new p image, you say load image, and that way all you have to do is say the file name, which is file name. Oh, not load image of the file name. The total file name will be our base file name, or we could call this the file name prefix, and then plus the number, right? Because you're having a count, right? Horse.image.run.01 /0 or -01, and then -02, and then -03. You have that prefix and then the number that's counting. So we're gonna say file name plus, right, I, and it'll automatically convert I into a string so that it can combine the two. So make sure when you have your animation file that the file starts at animation 0 and then 1 and then 2. Otherwise this won't really work. Now that's all we need. Now another thing that we're going to want in our animation class, other than the constructor, is a display function. We're going to want it to increase its counter, right? So it knows what frame it's at, and we also want it to increase. We want it to loop through the images basically. All right, so we're gonna create a void class called display. Display. We're gonna display. You have your X, you have your Y. Basically, we're gonna do all the imaging, the imaging right here. All we need this to do is we're gonna say count plus equals 1, right? Now I'm gonna alter this very soon, but all we're saying is, hey, I want it to increase the frame. I want to increase the frame by a certain number. I want to increase the frame by a certain number. And what I mean by count or frame, all I'm saying is the index of our p image list. So remember, our p image list is just a list that we've loaded picture objects into, right? Now we can, if we loop through that list, right, using a for loop or just counting using a counter variable and using the index through that list, we can access each p image. So we can just say count plus equal 1, right? So we're moving frame by frame through the list to go to the next animation. But we want to alter this just a little bit. We want to actually say equals count plus 1. Sorry. Remember this dot count equals this dot count plus 1 modulo, and I messed it up this whole time. The function is called modulo, the remainder is called modulus, I think, something like that. But I know the function is called modulo. This dot image count. What we're saying is, hey, once this remember, modulo is the remainder function. It finds the remainder. So if it can divide perfectly, right? If it can divide 7 by 7 perfectly or 14 by 7 perfectly, as in the remainder will be a whole number, then it'll return 0, because the remainder, if you divide perfectly, is 0. So what we're saying is, hey, once this reaches the end, it goes from 0 all the way to our animation has 7 frames. Once it goes to 7, we want to divide 7 by 7, right? Which will actually give us a remainder of 0. And because we're storing that inside of count, we're resetting the frame. We're trying to reset the frame. Once it gets to the end of the animation, we want to start back at the beginning. So that's how you do it. If you say modulo the total length of the image, it'll repeat over that image over and over and over again. So, okay. One more thing I want to add in here that I didn't add in at the top in the constructor. I wanted to declare this dot count equals 0. And I realize this is kind of confusing. Count equals there's 2 different kinds of counts here. This one I'm going to call it frame count, right? The number of, no, that is not good. I'm going to call it file count, right? Basically, I want to differentiate these variables. That's the only time. Yeah, okay. Those are the only times it's used. Count is completely separate, and this version of count I'm saying which frame it's at right now. The count I was using earlier, or the file count, is how many total file or images there are inside of our animation. Now all we have to do is say images of count at x and y. So again, the image function displays a p image at a certain coordinate, right? X and y. How do I access that? Well, I have a list of images that I can access using the index of count and this dot images and that'll display it to a certain coordinate. So that's basically it. Now let's go into the fun stuff. All right, we're gonna create an animation right here. So we're gonna again void setup, have our setup function, and have our draw function. Now all I'm trying to do in this animation that you're going to see is I'm trying to draw the horse to the screen. So a couple of things. I have to make sure our size is pretty big. The size of the screen is pretty big. I want to say 500 by 500. Give us a lot of leg room. Hopefully, I don't actually know the dimensions of the image, but hopefully it's smaller than that. I'm also going to create wow, crows are outside and they're being really annoying. Okay. A new animation class, or yeah, animation object. So animation horse, right, will be a new animation, equals new animation, and the name of again, what kind of parameters or arguments or inputs do we have to have here? All those are the same thing. We're gonna have to have a file name and a file count. The file name is horse-run-0, right? And the total number of images there are is 7. Now that we have that, I'm gonna say, oh, okay, we could do this here, or we could just end it there and say animate horse equals, oh no, horse equals new animation. These are essentially the same thing. This I'm saying, hey, at the beginning of the I'm defining a bunch of variables, and empty, this is precisely, or this specific one is saying, hey, excuse me, I'm creating empty animation class, empty animation object. And when I start the game, which is in setup, I want to store new animation inside of it. If I kept it up here, then I guess it's the same thing. But because setup for sure runs before draw, we're going to define it here. So now that we have our animation, we're going to have to draw it. And here's how we're going to do that. So we're going to create integer x, right? We're going to create integer speed. Now I could create a new horse class just to store all of this inside of it, and I can give that horse class a variable that is an animation, right? So I can just run through that animation. But because all I'm doing is creating one horse, all I need is I can just store it all in the main class. Now yeah, again, you can organize this however you want. I'm just doing it in this specific way. I'm gonna create an integer y. So here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna simply say background. Let's have a yeah, we'll have a white background again. Maybe that's too boring. What kind of background do you guys want? Nah, okay, I don't want to have it like be super neon because that would be crazy. All right, background of 255. And if you missed what size does, size just sets the dimensions of the screen. So it's a 500 by 500 pixel screen. So I'm going to now my horse has one function, right? It's the display function. Now I could have also given it like an update function, but again, all I'm doing is just keeping everything. I'm just throwing all this together. So I'm gonna have image, right? Or no, not image. I'm gonna say horse.display. Okay, so in my draw function, I'll basically have the update function of the horse. So I'm gonna say x plus equal speed. Okay, so x plus equals speed, and now we're gonna say we're gonna do the same thing with the animation. We're gonna we're gonna have our animation once it reaches the end of the screen. We're gonna have it start back at the beginning. So except instead of using modulo, we can simply say if x is greater than width, and again, width is just the width of the screen in pixels. X equals 0. So actually here, x equals, Yeah, sure, why not? X equals 0. Now we could, uh, yeah, here. Let's just do this. Now what would we need for our display? All we need is an X and a Y. So I didn't define a couple variables. I'm gonna say, not int, X equals 0, X or speed equals, let's just start it at 1. It might look funny. Y equals, let's do 10. It'll be a little lower. All right, guys, let's run this. Okay, what did I miss? Oh, okay. I forgot to end my class with a bracket. So now I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna call it horse animation. So I'm gonna, oh whoa. No, what did I do? Okay. All right. I'm gonna save this to somewhere on my folder. You can do the same. Horse animation. All right, horse animation. Or I should have capitalized the H. All right, whatever. Let's run this. All right, I got an error instantly. Horse run. Oh, okay. Okay. I know how to fix it. You guys can't see the error message, or actually you can. Basically, there's no file named, if you look here into my file explorer, there's no file named horse-run-00. There's a file named horse-run-00.png. I forgot to include the file type, so make sure when you're doing something like this, you include the file type. So how do you add that in? Well, in my animation class, I'm gonna assume that all of our images will have a PNG tag, or a file type. So instead of just ending it there, I have to write .png. Remember, remember to include your file names. We'll try this one more time. Alright, it's erroring out again. Okay, I dealt with a bunch of errors. Now we can finally run it. Alright, so this is the ultimate animation. This is the product that we've created. It looks kind of funny. I want to edit it a little bit before I finish this video. You can see that even though it's running super fast, it's not moving super fast. So we'll learn to fix that right now. And other than that, that's basically it. So one more thing I want to add into our animation class. I want to add in a speed variable as well. And I also want to add in a width, or yeah, a W. We can't use the width thing again. So one more thing other than the file count we want to add is a speed. And the speed is how fast we want the animation to run. And the reason we have a speed is because, well, yeah. I mean, we want our speed. We want our animation to run at certain speeds and not always be 0. So, oh wait, no, this dot speed equals speed. Okay, this might look confusing. I named it here. Animation speed. Yeah, let's just copy paste that over. So we have an animation speed. So instead of increasing it by 1, we're gonna increase it by this dot speed. Now one problem with this is, what if we give it a speed that's below 1, or like or like a float speed, right? Something with a decimal. An easy way to get rid of that is to just say int. And when you use int, it turns whatever is inside of it into an integer. So if it's floating point, it just grabs the decimals and throws it away. It doesn't round. There's a round function. I'm using int, which just grabs the float and throws it away. So now that way we don't have, the reason I want this is because we're using counter as an index. You can't have decimal indexes, right? what is index 3.5 in your animation? It won't really work. It can't, like, yeah, it won't work. So we're gonna have to use integers only. Now this works. It might look a little staticky, like it might jump frames, but that's okay. That's okay with us. So we're missing a speed number, and we're gonna say speed, and I kind of let's just move these up here. Now why don't I get rid of speed completely? Don't we not need it anymore? It's just included inside of animation. Well, we still have to add the physics. You have to give the physics a certain speed too. So let's say the speed is like 10. Now, okay, I realize this isn't very smart. Okay, one more thing, one more thing. All right, uh, it's already going at a super fast speed. Okay, ooh. Okay, sorry. Okay, we have to choose a speed between 0 and 1. And the reason we have to choose a speed between 0 and 1 is because if we're changing the frame every single second already, that's insanely fast. So let's say like 0.2. But then again, it moves really slow. So let's multiply this by a scalar, right? A scalar is just a number that we multiply to increase size. Okay, speed, it has to be a float. Let's just say it's a float. That means we'll go here, it's a float, and over here, it's a float. All right. Okay, now we fixed everything. We fixed hopefully everything. Now let's run this one more time. And it's not changing. Okay, so one more thing. I missed out. Okay, we have to make sure our counter variable, because now we're adding by a float number, we have to make sure it is a float number. So, and the reason I took out the integer value here is because every time it increased by like 0.2, it would instantly take that away because we applied into it. So we're going to apply it here. When it actually takes the index of the animation, we're going to put it there. So we don't have to change anything else. I think it's completely fine now. All right, let's run this. All right, there you go. We did it. All right, see, that's pretty smooth. If you're working on an animation yourself, you can figure out how to do parts of an animation, or if you're creating a sprite, how it can loop through certain animations. Or if you want to develop an entire like movie scene using digital graphics, you can use this process of animations, and that way yeah, you can build your own little digital animation. So that's basically it for today. I showed you can actually have it run multiple horses with different speeds. I might do a small video on that. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.